Chris KABA, folks. Chris KABA. This is the big news at this moment in time. We're in different bits and pieces to back up this story hour by hour. I was going to do this video today based on things I'd seen last night on the TV and again this morning. And I think I was probably going to be taking a different tack than I'm now going to take. Obviously because of news we've been getting over the last few hours. Now let me just say this, folks. I don't care what anybody says. If your skin isn't white, if you're black, you get a much worse run off the police than if you're white. There's no doubt about that. I was watching something today on Loose Women. The panellist there, is it Kelly Bryan? I think it's Kelly Bryan. She said, I've had loads and loads of problems with the police over the years. She said, I would imagine I've been stopped about 6 to 8 times now during my lifetime driving a car. Is this your car, madam? Is it in your name? Where did you get the funds from? Have you got any weapons? She said, it's crazy. She said, many members of my families have the same. She said, we picked one uncle of mine at once from the police station. He'd been wrongly arrested. He was a physical wreck. She said, you just get this because of your skin colour. And I get that, folks, and it's wrong. I really do. I also do understand in some parts of the country, like maybe your Londons or your Birminghams or your Manchester, Liverpools, your cities, there is a big black culture. There's a big black thing with knives and so on and so forth. I know it's not just all black people that do know that, but I know there's lots of gangs around and most of them are tooled up and many of them are black. I know it's not black and black only, but I do believe the blacks get a harder run of it than white folk do, and it's wrong. It's the same as in that there America. It's always been the way. It's wrong, but it's happened. And I do believe that there's been miscarriages of justice. I do believe black folk get bullied and so on and so forth. And I do know that folk have got in prison when they've not deserved it and even killed and beaten up when they've not deserved it. All those things happen. This Chris KABA today, I heard obviously bits of his story over the last couple of days. I heard that the jury took only 3 hours to acquit the policeman, and I'm thinking to myself, it does seem pretty quick that. It doesn't seem right at all. We're seeing members of his family outside the courts in all the protests, and I'm feeling sorry for them. I really am feeling sorry for them. But, for all I'm feeling sorry for them, a bit of me was going to say, look, I can half understand what's happened. I mean, he's in a car. It's a big car. It's got some weight behind it. The police are there tooled up, armed up, and they're telling him to stop and get out the car. He's not listening. At that, he backs up and tries to ram cars. He still won't get out the car, and he does it again. And I'm thinking, well, maybe the copper did fear for his life or for that of his colleagues or maybe for people on the street. We'd also heard that the car that this Chris was in, they believed had been involved in a robbery the night before. It may or may not have been, but that's the info they had. So at the end of the day, I'm thinking, well, he should have got out the car. He shouldn't have been ramming it. Yes, he's black, and maybe they victimise him because he's black rather than if he were white, but you still get out the car and then you complain later. You don't try to ram it out of a tight gap when there's lots of bodies around the car. It's extremely dangerous, and you're told to get out. You've got to get out the car. You've got to turn the engine off. But I still thought, did they need to shoot him? You know. But, and this is the biggie, because sometimes I'm guilty of doing a video before I've heard all of the facts. Now, I'm making more facts today, and it was only like 2 or 3 o'clock when I first started this on that there YouTube. Just put the bins on because I don't want to miss this out. According to one ex-police officer, now one many based on what I've seen, and I think it was on Talk News today, but they're saying Chris KABA was a member of one of the most feared gangs in the whole of London. He's only recently got out of prison for a firearm offence, but he was put in prison for having a firearm and with intent to endanger life with it. This same policeman is saying his car was uninsured yesterday, plus they believed it'd been was it in a robbery the day before? I think it was. He's also saying that had he not have been killed a couple of years ago now, a few months later he would have stood trial for conspiracy to murder along with some other members of his crew. Also, well, he put it as some friends of his. I'm now hearing even since that he's a member of one of the main gangs in that there London. And they're saying, look, they're peddling this story, his family, that he's got a kiddie on the way and he's never going to see his kiddie and it's awful, blah, 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 blah. He said, but what they're not telling you is his girlfriend had a restraining order against him because while she's been pregnant, he's beaten her up. Now, he says, when you hear all of that, he's an unsavoury character. So, he's been in prison before. He's a member of a big gang in that there London. What he's been in prison for has been carrying a firearm. They don't know whether he's got a firearm in that car. As it turned out, there wasn't, but they could have been, and they know who they're messing with. He's not far off going to court for other offences. He didn't get there, obviously, because he got killed in the meantime. And then he's ramming cars, but surrounded by police officers, all armed, and he's still ramming cars to try to get out. You're thinking to yourself, why are you trying to get away if you've done nothing wrong? He said, and that police has acted and fired, and that's it. But he said, there's a lot more to the story. And the ex-police officer is saying, he said, it's almost unheard of for a jury to make up their mind within 3 hours. It's almost unheard of. That's just showing that they believed all the evidence was in the favour of the policeman. Not because it's police against black, but because the policeman is doing what he feels to be right. And the black guy isn't the innocent that everyone's making him out to be. It's not a racist murder, as folk are making it out to be, although there have been them in the past. As I said earlier, talked about Kelly Bryan earlier, she says it all about how the black get persecuted, and I know they do, and I know it's wrong. But at the end of the day, he could have had a gun in the car, he could have been on his way to confront anybody. I think I've even seen a video since, and I've not even looked at it, where he's chasing a guy down a few weeks before he died and shot at him. Now, I've not read that, I might be wrong there, but I think I've seen that as well. So at the end of the day, you know, he's not somebody that you'd want your daughter to meet and bring home for tea, I wouldn't have thought. He's got a did have a very, very, very checkered past. And sometimes, as I say, we're guilty of doing these videos before we hear all the evidence. Now on hearing more today, I can sort of understand how the policeman has been found not guilty and why it only took the jury 3 hours. The sad thing I'm reading, and I don't know if it's true, is that they shouldn't have released the policeman's name, at least until they had some kind of conviction. But more than that, I believe he's been threatened by members of the gang that this young lad was in with death. So like he's now a marked man, so anything could happen to the guy. You know, anything could happen to the guy. So I don't know, folks. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want folk or police shooting folk in our streets. We really don't. And if you're like me, you won't like the idea of blacks being persecuted and treated differently than white folk, because I don't like that at all. But in this instance, with now what we know about the guy, maybe, just maybe, as Raylan Givens would have said, maybe it was justified. I don't know. Tell me your opinion. And I've got nothing against you, whether you're white, black, or any colour in between. I really, really haven't. But as I say, this guy may have been an accident waiting to happen. Had he still been alive, he may well have been, because as I say, he had a much more checkered past than I realised 24 hours ago. Much more.